the officer found him wandering 2 miles from home. No shoes. No wallet. Just a faded photo of a woman he couldn't name anymore. By the time they got James back to his apartment, he'd forgotten he'd ever left. His daughter flew in the next morning and found something disturbing, a journal where James had been writing down everything he was forgetting. First entry dated 13 months earlier. Last entry? He couldn't remember how to write in it anymore. What happened next shocked everyone, including his neurologist, who had already started the paperwork for full-time care. But before I tell you what they discovered, you need to understand what was really happening to James's brain. Most people think memory loss starts with forgetting birthdays or names. It doesn't. It starts invisibly. A misplaced coffee mug. A conversation you swear never happened. A story you tell twice without realizing. James wasn't some rare case. He represents millions of seniors today, retired, living alone, and slipping through society's cracks while their minds begin failing them. Let me be clear, this isn't about reversing aging or promising miracles. It's about fighting for clarity when the world starts becoming foggy. It's about maintaining independence when everyone's ready to take it away. I've spent 15 years working with aging communities. And there's something the medical establishment isn't telling you about cognitive decline. But here's what's strange, James had seen 3 different doctors before things got bad. All 3 missed the warning signs. Why? Most doctors are looking for dramatic symptoms. They're waiting for you to forget your children's names or get lost driving home. But by then, you're already years into decline. The first thing nobody told James, mild cognitive impairment doesn't announce itself with grand failures. It whispers. It's taking longer to find words. It's missing a bill payment. It's forgetting what you came into the room for, but frequently, not occasionally. And here's where it gets interesting. When James's daughter Sarah arrived, she found something the doctors never asked about: 2 years of untouched mail from friends. Christmas cards. Birthday invitations. All unopened. But why would social isolation matter to brain function? And why didn't any doctor ask about it? The second critical factor, loneliness, speeds up cognitive decline faster than almost any disease. Studies show it's equivalent to smoking 15 cigarettes daily. It literally shrinks your brain. But here's what's truly heartbreaking about James's case. Before I tell you what Sarah discovered in his kitchen cabinets, I need you to understand something crucial about routine and brain health. The third factor destroying James's mind: his days had no structure. Since retirement, every day blended into the next. No rhythm. No schedule. Just endless, formless time. When Sarah checked his bedroom, she found the real smoking gun: sleep patterns destroyed. Sometimes sleeping at 7 p.m., sometimes at 4 a.m. Sometimes not at all. But what Sarah found in the kitchen changed everything. And it's something so simple you'll be shocked no doctor prescribed it. When Sarah opened James's refrigerator, she found moldy food and expired milk. The cabinets held nothing but crackers and canned soup. His body was starving for nutrients his brain desperately needed. Here's what the average doctor won't tell you: before memory centers fail, your brain's nutrition and reward pathways fail first. You literally forget to feed yourself properly. You forget what feels good. You forget joy. At this point, James's doctor was recommending a memory care facility. "There's nothing we can do," he said. "This is just aging." But Sarah refused to accept that answer. And what she did next was both remarkably simple and incredibly difficult. Before I tell you the 3-step system Sarah created for her father, I need to share something important about neuroplasticity that changes everything we thought we knew about aging brains. Your brain isn't fixed after adulthood. It's not gradually dying. It's constantly rewiring itself based on what you demand of it. When parts of your brain stop being used, they don't just idle, they atrophy. But the reverse is also true. When you stimulate neural pathways consistently, they strengthen, regardless of age. And this is where James's story takes an unexpected turn. Because what Sarah discovered wasn't some miracle drug or expensive treatment. It was rhythm, structure, connection. The very things modern retirement strips away. But applying this knowledge wasn't easy. The first week was actually worse. James fought against the new routine. He was angry, confused. Sarah almost gave up. Then on day 8, something happened that made her cry. James woke up and asked what day it was. When Sarah told him it was Tuesday, he said, "Good, that means oatmeal with blueberries." He remembered the breakfast schedule they had created. It was a tiny victory. But it was the first sign his brain was forming new connections. Sarah's system had 3 essential components, each attacking a different aspect of cognitive decline. First, rigid timing for sleep, meals, and activity. Not just suggestions, absolute, unbreakable appointments with himself. 10 p.m. bedtime. 7 a.m. wake up. Meals at the same time every day. But it wasn't just when he ate, it was what he ate that made neurologists take notice. And I'll get to that controversial diet in a moment. Second, daily movement that followed a specific pattern. Not just exercise, but exercise that challenged his brain's coordination centers. 20 minutes of walking through neighborhoods with turns and landmarks. Not on a treadmill. The navigation forces spatial reasoning, which activates hippocampal function. But before I explain the third component, the one that shocked his neurologist most, I need to tell you about what happened 3 weeks into this program. 3 weeks in, James had a setback. A major one. Sarah found him in the bathroom, sobbing. He couldn't remember how to shave, something he'd done for 60 years. It seemed like the program was failing. The doctor said, "This proves we need to consider full-time care." Sarah was devastated. But that night, she discovered something that changed everything. Going through his dresser for clean clothes, she found a hidden box of photos. And a journal she'd never seen before. The journal revealed a truth no one knew. James had been covering up his memory loss for nearly 3 years. The symptoms weren't getting worse now, they were finally being exposed. And here's the twist that changed how Sarah approached everything. James had been experiencing these symptoms long before his wife died 2 years ago. His seeming rapid decline wasn't from being alone. His wife had been covering for him. Finishing his sentences. Handling the bills. Maintaining their social life. When she passed, his scaffolding collapsed. This revelation completely altered their approach. This wasn't about reversing recent damage. This was about rebuilding neural pathways that had been deteriorating for years. And that's when Sarah implemented the third and most powerful component of the system. The third element, structured social interaction that forced specific types of memory recall. Not just having visitors, but scheduled, purposeful conversations that required James to access different memory systems. Storytelling sessions about specific decades of his life. Card games that exercised short-term memory. Music from his youth that activated emotional memory. But the most powerful technique was something so simple, yet so profound: daily identity reinforcement. Each morning, Sarah or a caregiver would sit with James and go through the same ritual. "Your name is James Wilson. You were born in Cincinnati. You were a civil engineer. You have one daughter named Sarah and two grandchildren, Emma and Jack. Neurologists scoffed at this approach. That's not how memory works, they said. But something remarkable started happening in week 5. James started finishing the sentences himself. Then one morning, he corrected the caregiver, Jack is 12, not 11. His birthday was last month. It wasn't just that he remembered facts. His personality began returning. The wit. The humor. The man who had been disappearing. By week 8, James was making his own breakfast, following the precise routine they'd established. He was tracking his medications. He was calling Sarah by name every time. But the most stunning moment came in week 10, when his neurologist ran a follow-up cognitive assessment. Before I tell you those results, you need to understand what was happening in his brain chemically. When you combine rigid routine, nutrient-dense foods, daily movement, and purposeful social interaction, you're not just treating symptoms, you're attacking the 4 horsemen of cognitive decline. Inflammation. Insulin resistance. Oxidative stress. And neurochemical imbalance. James's new diet was rich in omega-3 fatty acids, sardines twice weekly, walnuts daily, flaxseed in his oatmeal. These foods don't just feed your brain, they repair its communication systems. The daily walks weren't just for exercise. They were timed precisely at 10 a.m. when cortisol levels naturally begin to dip. The movement and morning light helped regulate his circadian rhythm, which directly impacts memory consolidation. When the neurologist ran the follow-up cognitive assessment, he expected minimal change. Instead, he found James had improved by 23% on the Montreal Cognitive Assessment, a test where even a 5% improvement would be considered significant. The doctor actually said, "I need to document this case." This defies conventional understanding. But here's what the doctor didn't know yet: Sarah had been hiding one more intervention. Something controversial that some medical professionals still resist. While structure, nutrition, and movement were rebuilding James's brain, Sarah had added something else to his routine: purposeful stress. Each day included a difficult learning task that pushed him to the edge of frustration. Learning 5 words in Spanish. Solving a simple math problem. Drawing a clock face from memory. The theory was radical: cognitive decline accelerates when we stop encountering and overcoming challenges. The brain needs resistance to build strength, just like muscles. The neurologist later admitted this might have been the most powerful element. Each small victory released dopamine, which literally fertilizes the growth of new neural connections. But before I give you the exact protocol that transformed James's life, and could help someone you love, I need to address the uncomfortable truth about why these simple interventions aren't standard practice in medicine today. Our medical system is designed to treat disease, not build health. It's reactive, not proactive. And it's siloed into specialties that rarely communicate. James had seen a cardiologist for his high blood pressure, a gastroenterologist for his digestive issues, and a neurologist for his memory. Not one of them connected his fragmented sleep patterns, nutritional deficiencies, and social isolation to his cognitive decline. And here's the most troubling part: what happened to James isn't rare. It's happening right now to millions of seniors who are being told their decline is just aging when it's actually a perfect storm of addressable factors. The good news is you don't need a medical degree to implement what saved James's independence. You just need commitment and consistency. Here's the exact system that transformed James from a man who couldn't remember his daughter's name to someone who could live independently again. First, the sleep-wake revolution. Non-negotiable bedtime and wake time, 365 days a year. No exceptions. Bedroom completely dark. No screens 2 hours before bed. Morning sunlight exposure within 30 minutes of waking. Second, the nutritional foundation. 3 meals daily at fixed times. Each meal must contain protein, healthy fat, and fiber. Specific brain-feeding foods daily: fatty fish, dark leafy greens, berries, nuts, olive oil. Third, the movement matrix. Not just exercise, movement with purpose. 20 minutes of neighborhood walking with navigation challenges. 10 minutes of balance exercises. Hand-eye coordination games like catching or bouncing a ball. Fourth, the connection commitment. Scheduled social interactions, not just passive presence, but active engagement. Memory recall games with family photos. Storytelling sessions. Teaching someone else a skill. And finally, the element that brought tears to Sarah's eyes in week 12, the return to purpose. James had been a civil engineer. He built things. Solved problems. For 40 years, his identity was wrapped in creation and solution. In retirement, that purpose vanished. Sarah brought him simple engineering puzzles. Asked his opinion on household repairs. Gradually reintroduced him to the man he'd always been. By month 4, James was doing something the doctors said would be impossible. But before I tell you what that was, I need to share the most important insight from this entire journey. Aging isn't about decline. It's about recalibration. What matters at 74 isn't what mattered at 44. But meaning never becomes less important. James didn't cure aging. He didn't reverse time. What he did was reclaim his dignity. His mornings. His favorite jazz records. His ability to recognize his grandchildren's faces. There's a profound saying that guided Sarah through this journey: you can't add days to your life, but you can add life to your days. In month 4, James did something remarkable. He called Sarah on the phone, on his own initiative, to tell her he'd fixed the leaky faucet in the kitchen. A simple act of everyday competence that brought her to tears. The man who had been found wandering without shoes was now the man who could solve problems again. Who could contribute? Who could remember? If you or someone you love is navigating early memory loss, here's what James's story teaches us. Don't accept decline as inevitable. Don't wait for a diagnosis to take action. Start with rhythm. Structure each day. Make sleep sacred. Feed the brain properly. Move with purpose. Connect meaningfully. The changes won't be overnight. James had dark days even in month 3. The path isn't perfect, but it's powerful. Remember, your brain is listening to how you treat it. Every meal. Every conversation. Every night of sleep. It's never too late to start speaking a language it can respond to. In our next video, the 7-minute morning ritual that saved his life, how a 52-year-old executive reversed decades of damage. It's controversial, but the research is too compelling to ignore. Until then, remember James's simple wisdom: my mind works better when I do. Start small. Stay consistent. Watch what happens. This isn't just about memory. It's about reclaiming who you've always been.